Hello and welcome to the second session of the third day of the virtual Fatherhood Summit. Uh, as you can tell by the last one, we have an all-star lineup for you. We've got some great people, some great men who are passionate about fatherhood and about being great husbands. This one is going to be a treat. Let me tell you, I am here with my friend, Mr. Brian Street. Brian, man, thank you for joining us.
And thank you for having me. Been quite the busy day for me, but I was definitely looking forward to this specific hour here. Definitely.
Yeah, man. So we're going to get we're going to get into some pretty deep stuff. The two of us have had some fascinating conversations, about fatherhood, about marriage. But Brian, first, let me ask you, what makes a man a great leader, especially within marriage and fatherhood?
Specifically, I'll take that in two parts. I'll take it in three parts. First off, leader. I think what makes a man a great leader is saying what it is that he's going to do one or two times and then doing it. Not consistently saying it, and not really putting any action behind it, but actually doing it and doing it in a manner which makes others want to do it with you, which makes others want to support you, which makes others want to come behind you and promote what it is that you've got going on, because they see that it is something that's impactful for the lives of others, and it's not a selfish act. As far as a father, is leading by example, specifically when you're in the presence of your kids. And when it comes to being a husband, it's kind of a two-part thing, because you want your children to see how you're being a leader in front of their mom, but also in front of them outside of the context of their mom. So there's things that I would do with my children away from my wife that maybe she wouldn't allow them to do, but I have a reason why I'm allowing them to do it, and I explain that to them. And then at the same time, if there's something that's going on with our children and I'm in the conversation or whatever it is with my wife, I let them know why I support certain things that she does and why certain things I may go in a different direction with. So leading by example primarily, and if you're doing something that others may not understand, it's being able to articulate why you're doing it and how you see it being beneficial, not only for yourself, but for the masses.
Man, that's such a great answer. And so, I said we're going to get, pretty heavy, pretty quick. This is kind of a heads up for everyone out there. So, Brian, right now, when we look at the atmosphere and the climate around the United States, and as I said earlier in the very first session, thank the good Lord that this is not a summit on politics. But when you look at the climate in today's world, when you look at the society, especially in the United States, and we see so much hate and so much confusion about people that we don't understand on both sides, how are we supposed to be good leaders in our home?
I love this question, Matt. I absolutely love this question. I get into various different touchy, controversial, conversational individuals on a regular basis. I am a very free thinker. I really take pride in my independence when it comes to how I think, how I approach life, and I really aim to influence those around me to be the same way. And we'll go right to it. There's conversation in our house all the time about Donald Trump. We're just gonna be out there. We hear conversations about Donald Trump. We hear conversations about various different political figures, various different people who are in the limelight, period. And it's so easy for us to have access to those individuals and allow them, whether it's something that they're doing that we don't like or something that they're doing that we do like, but allow that influence to be internalized, and we start to manifest their action. We start to manifest their wording, things along those lines, not really knowing why, not really understanding how is this actually beneficial for me and those around me. It's so easy to listen to the next person in your circle that has a little education or has a little influence, and you just simply go off of what they say. Well, such and such said it, so it must be true. That's what I'm going to go out and speak to the world. It's so easy to do that. But me coming from a highly academic background, I am very apt at finding out what the truth is behind the truth, what it is that's actually happening in comparison to what the mainstream is saying, and how specifically that which is happening affects me and affects my family. Because as a father, I have to shield my children from certain things, but at the same time want them to be exposed to certain things that our family may not agree with, but just so that they understand the world that we're living in, and explain to them why this person acts the way he or she does, why he or she says the things that he or she says, how that differentiates from who you are, where you are, and who you're aiming to be, and just keeping their mind in that zone of, okay, this person is an authority figure to me right now, but I really don't agree with what he or she is telling me. Let me question them, respectfully question them. Why do they feel that I should believe that? And then once they reply, I formulate my own decision on how I want to move forward with that information. So I guess that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, so that's some fascinating stuff. I think that there is a lot of people in today's world that take things at face value. And then you've got people who hear about a couple of specific events, and I'm trying to kind of talk in code, and from a 55 or 50,000 foot view. There's so much controversy going on in today's world about different things, about different issues. How, as a leader in our family, can we approach today's society and lead our children, lead our wife, lead our family to a good structure, and continuously try to be building them up when we've got the rest of the world kind of tearing us down?
I think we have to first understand our culture, understand our family, understand our genetic makeup, understand the socioeconomic status of the environment with which we live in. And understanding how that differs from that of the individual that may be disseminating that information. And I'll keep going back to it because I'm a very academic individual. There's, in social sciences, in various different spaces, there's what's called the theory, and then there's the art. The theory is what has been proven to work time and time again, but in specific populations, within specific demographics. So it's very easy for someone in power to say, well, this has proven to work, and they try to cast that on the whole population, not understanding the art of it. The art is, how do you apply the theory to this population, to that population, to that population? It's going to be applied subtly different, or vastly different, depending on the population that you're serving. The gentleman that we had on before, before I was on, was mentioning things along the lines of the cognitive distortions and just cognitive processes, period. Well, through my academic career and the practices that I use in my coaching and mentoring individuals, I have a strong preference for cognitive behavioral therapy and the practices or the methodology around that. And you can apply that specific approach when you're working with older adolescents, adults, individuals in those demographics. But if you're trying to help a kid get through certain things, you can't use that approach. You can't use the theoretical framework around cognitive behavioral therapy when you're trying to speak with someone whose cognitions are so underdeveloped. There's so much more that has to happen in that individual's mind. So I really help my kids and my wife. I mean, my wife she's pretty out there when it comes to being woke, so to say, as far as understanding not to take in everything that someone else says and formulating her own opinion. But children are easily influenced, especially if they have access to the internet. Some things that they come across can easily influence the decisions that they make, the direction that they choose. And my son is fortunate to have had numerous interactions with people that are vastly different than him. I'm talking Indian, East Indian, Pakistani, Latin Americans, people from all over the place, African Americans, Caucasian Americans. So he has a vast array of cultural competence that he's been able to develop. So he understands to a certain degree that just because a certain thing applies to his friend in one way, is going to apply to him a little bit differently, simply because of where he's from, what his culture is, what the background of his culture is, and how certain things affect his culture in comparison to others. So I always aim to just to keep them in the mindset of not allowing society to dictate the course of their thinking, how they're actually approaching their day-to-day life, but be studied, listen to society, understand where they're coming from, but then you formulate your own opinion on why you're going to make whatever decision it is that you are going to make.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. I think that and to dive a little bit, into your history a little bit, and in the conversations that we've had, as a young child, you were expected to do one of three different careers. Talk to us a little bit about the expectation of failure based on these different assumptions that society and culture places on to us as children.
Okay, I'll start this actually more recent, because something that recently happened in my life kind of triggered me to go back to the time that you're mentioning. I was a master's level student in a social work program about 2 years ago, about 2 years or so ago, and the the dean of my program had recently stepped down into a teaching position. He was looking to transition. I'm assuming soon he'll be trying to retire. But anyways, he stepped down into a teaching position. He was one of my professors, and I have to say one of my favorite, because these types of issues, he was not afraid to touch them. We always had hot topic, hot button issues that we discussed in class. So I have a high level of respect and admiration for him. But there was one specific exchange that we had through email that pretty much stemmed from a quote that was at the bottom of my email. And I completely understand where he was coming from. And saying that the specific quote was, "Your only limitations in life are those that you place upon yourself, or that you accept from others," by Dr. Napoleon Hill. So he gave me some feedback, some of his thoughts of Dr. Napoleon Hill. Some of the things that he disagreed with on how Napoleon Hill lived his life. So and pretty much told me I should quote individuals from the social work background, because social work is based in reality. And pretty much he was saying Dr. Napoleon Hill did lots of things that aren't based in our reality. And he was an authority figure over me. And there was a couple different choices I had. Either just swallow my desire to come back and respect the fact that he was that authority figure, or to go to exactly why I have that specific quote, let him know why I have it and why I am not going to remove it. And that the way that kind of went was coming from where I'm from, dealing with the population that I'm looking to continue to help throughout the entirety of my life with my career. Individuals like myself, coming from my specific community, there were pretty much three courses of life that we were expected to go. The reality of our life that we were expected to go. One, if you were an African-American male coming from my community, if you were going to the pinnacle of your success was making it to the next level as a professional athlete, that was it. That was your ticket out. If you didn't make it that route, pretty much the next level is making it to where you're working some type of blue collar job. You don't like it. You pretty much hate your job, but it gets you good money. You got decent benefits, and you're supporting your family. If you don't make it one of those two, you're pretty much expected to be a bum on the street corner selling drugs, in and out of corrections. Those were the three primary expectations of reality that was placed upon someone that looked like me, that came from where I came from. But I always had parents that would always push me to do what it is that I really wanted to do and continue to take it to another level. So my community was a primarily white school district. So if you were an African-American student, you had to really be doing some outstanding things in academics or athletics to really get noticed in any significant way. And I was blessed to be able to do both. I had very good grades coming through high school. Plus I was a four sport athlete. So that really helped set the platform for me to continue to build a more successful life outside the expectations of the society of my community. So that's where I wrap my work around, is helping young individuals, specifically from minority communities, and even within some of the majority community, because there are minorities within the majority that are being overlooked just based off of some of the things that their family was known for before they came along. So pretty much allowing them to step outside of society's expectations of them, figure out, have that vision, like the gentleman mentioned before, have that clear vision. Okay, this is where I want to be 5 years down the road. But I understand there's going to be politics, there's going to be relationships, there's going to be financial issues, a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of crap between where you visualize yourself being and where you currently are. Understand that, embrace that, take it on wholeheartedly, knowing that once you overcome all of this and you get to that visualized version of yourself, you will have made it. But then at the same time, don't become complacent. Don't allow yourself to stay there thinking, I've made it. Set another vision even further out. So that's what I really aim to pour into individuals around me. Don't allow what society says you're expected to do. Don't allow that to be your reality, your truth. I spoke at an elementary school this morning, and that was part of my lesson, is not allowing their friends, even their teachers, to say, this is what you're going to be when you grow up. Because had I done that, I would not be where I am now today in life. And I am so grateful that I didn't allow that to be internalized throughout the course of my life.
I love that, man. Thank you for sharing. I know it's something that we've talked in detail about more than once. And, busting through people's expectations, not allowing people to hold you down, regardless of the circumstances. We have a choice in this life. Does that mean that there are some people or a group of people who may have had more choices? Absolutely. And I don't think anybody would deny that there are people out there who do have more choices. But I love your story because it talks about rejecting people's expectations. Not only that, but I love the mindset that you took on, which is, man, I'm not going to become another statistic. And I absolutely love that. Talk to us a little bit about your mindset growing up and how you continue to build yourself up and to take care of yourself, how you develop yourself physically and mentally and spiritually, and there's different forms to keep some of that negativity out.
Well, first off, I really think that it's quite arduous process. It's quite difficult because you are having to be reborn pretty much. And like I said, I had somewhat of a head start with the support of my parents, always pushing me to stay out of this trouble over here because they knew what was going to happen if I would have went over here. So keeping me from that and pushing me towards something that they felt at least would be more beneficial to me. So I look back all the way through my grade school years where I faced bullying. I had can't tell it now, I had very curly hair. So I got called Jerry Curl Juice. My voice didn't start to develop as far as puberty is considered until a later age than most of my friends. So I was Jerry Curl, talk like a girl. So there were some things that I had to battle throughout school that the support of my parents helped me develop coping mechanisms to deal with that. But once I got into the world on my own, I kind of fell into the I wouldn't say trap, but into the mindset of I'm going to find what company or what line of work my parent says is the best for me. I'm going to get into it. I'm going to work my way up. I started to fall into that mentality, and being in that mentality is very easy to cast blame on others when you fall short. Well, you're like, well, they told me to go this route anyway, so it's their fault that I'm not doing as well as I should be doing. And that goes so many different directions when it comes to life in general, but also when it comes to employment. Whenever you have a supervisor or a manager that trains you a certain way, but then you fell short at performing the task, it's easy for you to blame it on the supervisor. Well, he trained me, he told me to do it this way. And then you're continuing to develop a stronger victim mindset around what you're doing in that space. And that's going to permeate throughout your life in various different areas. So when I met my wife back in 2006, I met my wife back in 2006. I was a completely different individual than I am today, whereas that was the mindset that I was in. And I remember utilizing Facebook, utilizing social media to complain, to say what sucks in my life right now, to beg somebody, do you know who's hiring over here, who's hiring over there? Not to put down on people who use Facebook to look for a job, but I allowed the fate of my future to be placed into other people's hands, so to say. I allowed my shortcomings to just be blasted out there in society, not really thinking or taking into consideration that that's toxic. Like me splurting out these things could be giving other people that same sense of helplessness. So I wanted to change that. And I truly believe the shift happened in my life when I joined a network marketing company a while back, 2012. And I'm not trying to plug any company or any line of work, but being in that specific industry put me around people that looked at life differently, put me around people that were all about personal development, becoming a better version of yourself. So I really grasped onto that. So I started listening to personal development material all day, every day. And it helped me look at life differently, my potentials differently, what was actually out there differently. It helped me travel and see things outside of my immediate community. And I had never really traveled much before that. So it exposed me to what opportunities were there for me to have that I didn't know about beforehand. And throughout that process, I have continued education. I actually was, before I encountered that specific space, I was actually kicked out of college, academic suspension. And I spent 3 years out in the working world trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my life. And it was shortly after going back to college that I actually partnered with this company and started to change the course of my life. And ever since then, it's like an addiction. I'm addicted to personal development. So the more I listen to it, the more energetic I am to go out and pour it into others. And that's one thing that we have to realize as a leader, as a father, the self-care is critical. Like we have to have others in our circle that are able to lift us up whenever we're feeling down, whenever we feel like we've poured all out. We need people in our circle that can help pick us up and, give us a little rest. Hey, take a day or so, but then get back to work, because as a leader, we have to be taking action. One thing that I'm very adamant about is pushing myself. And if it wasn't for my support system, I would have crashed and burned by now, because I give so much of myself. I pull all-nighters, here and there. And then after that all-nighter, I'm out pouring into someone else. And then at the end of the day, okay, who do I need to call up? Because I need somebody to pour into me. And being a part of groups, being a part of circles like I am with you, and actually part of the circle that kind of initiated me meeting you, being part of those types of organizations are what help you become a better version of yourself. And I just aim to pour that out everywhere I go, utilize those support systems to kind of spark that understanding, okay, maybe it's time to crank down a little bit, do some self-care, and just continue to see that vision of where it is that I'm trying to get to, continue doing what it is that it takes to get there, not talking about it, but being about it.
Absolutely love that. So how does that change a mindset? You said that when you first got married, when you first met your wife, that you had a different mindset, a different expectation, that you allow society's expectations of you to kind of take control. And so you started to live that way. So what did the change in mindset, the change of I am worth it, I'm valuable enough, how did that change in mindset affect your relationship with your wife and with your children?
Well, with my children, fortunately, my daughter wasn't born yet. My son was still my son was 3 years old when I started to transition. No, he was 4 when I started to transition my mindset. So he was rather young before my coming to age. So he really didn't see much of that underdevelopment of me. And literally a statement that he made probably about 2 years ago when I was in the middle of my master's degree. He said, "Daddy, like you've been in school my whole life." Because literally when he was born, I was in the middle of, the whole time where I was kicked out of school. But then after about 2 years, when he started to be able to understand what's going on around him, is when I went back to school. And then we went to Miami for a little while. And right after Miami, I went back to school, and I've pretty much been in school since. So he's been able to see that hardworking desire to gain more knowledge. He's been able to see that in me, and he's been able to pretty much mirror it, and I would say surpass me. He is highly, highly intelligent young man. I mean, his accolades are like just crazy already. I'm not going to go into them right now, but he's done things academically at his current age that I only started to achieve that level recognition my college days. Anyways, my daughter, she sees it. She's been seeing it since she was born. She knows daddy goes, 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 and goes, and goes, and goes. And sometimes she doesn't like it, specifically right now with me working on my PhD out of state. So being out of state for a vast majority of the week and throughout the months. And she'll tell me, "Daddy, I don't like when you go to your faraway school. You took too long. Like, when are you coming back? I don't want you to go back." So she doesn't like that specific aspect. But whenever I tell her what her future can be when I finish, when I mention some of the things that she wants to buy at the store and some of the places that she wants to go, when I mention how much easier it's going to be for us to be able to do that once I finish this stage of my life, she understands. She doesn't like it, but she understands. Now, when it comes to my wife, a statement that I frequently make whenever I'm facilitating my classes, when I'm giving speeches, is that typically your friends and family aren't going to start to support you until strangers start to celebrate you. Friends and family won't start to support you until strangers start to celebrate you, because your friends and family know you for who you are today backwards. They know who you were at your lowest point. They know who you were when you were struggling the most. So that's how they're going to judge you. They're not going to want to support these audacious ventures and everything that you're going on, because they know how you fallen on your face in the past. So in one sense, you can't really blame them. But in another sense, you need to make sure you're placing yourself around enough strangers that see and understand your vision, that see and understand your current drive, that see the action that you're currently taking, that are going to start to celebrate you. And eventually, the friends and family are going to come along for the ride. At least start to support you, if it's no more than a moral support. But my wife, for the longest, like, she wasn't hearing it, because there wasn't money coming in behind the things that I was doing at the level that she was envisioning to come in. And it's been quite the path. It's been quite the, see, that's family right there. Fatherhood. Hey,
Yeah,
what you got to do?
it's real.
Yes.
Facebook, Brian. Hold on one second. This is, as you guys all know, this is a part of fatherhood. And
yes, handle business.
What's wrong, sweetheart?
Well, while Matt attends his darlings, some of the things that I've had conversations with him on is the fact that we have to realize, we have to understand that everything that we're doing has a purpose for our children, has a purpose, or should have a purpose for our family, for those who we're serving as a father, as a spouse for. And we have to continue to articulate that to them. There's been times where my wife and I have had interactions where she didn't know everything I had going on, and me trying to just do it, and I have to stop and understand or explain it to her, caused her to feel a certain way because I wasn't including her in what was going on. So I was just sharing, Matt, how we have to understand that most of the things that we are doing, we have to make sure our family understands that we are doing it for them. It's not for us. It's for the family unit, for our spouse, for our kids. And when we're able to communicate that to them, regardless of what we're doing, they're going to be more on board with that. But at the same time, they'll be there to help bring our spirits back up when we're going through a down time. Because it's so difficult to come home after having a bad day and then you just shut yourself off, and your significant other, she can't really say anything to you to bring you up because you're shutting her out. So just communicate. And I think communication is very critical when it comes to leadership, especially as a father. We want to be the breadwinner and make all these executive decisions, but I've heard it said behind every strong man is an even stronger woman. So we got to lean on our women, guys. We got to lean on our women.
Yeah, very true. And I think you hit on a really important, critical point that I've pointed out a couple of different times before, and I'll go ahead and point it out again, and that is that our kids will never understand their value and what they're worth until we as men understand our value and what we're worth. And, as Brian and I are both, psychology gurus, we love, figuring out what makes people think. And the thing about this is that our children are watching us through a glass house. They're looking at us. They're looking at the way that we view ourselves. So if we're in a family, and it doesn't matter what obstacles you have in life, it doesn't matter whether, where you're from, what your cultural background is, if you're white, if you're black, if you're, what your background is. If you do not understand what your personal value is, then your children aren't going to. My kids do not look at their skin and go, I'm white, so I'm going to succeed and there's no way I can fail. And that's because they understand that I value myself. And here's the phenomenal thing about that is once we understand that we're valuable, that we're precious, and as a Christian, I believe that we were all created for a purpose. We can look at people, whether that's from a different culture, a different background, a different sexual orientation, from a different, if people are different from us, then we can start to cherish who they are. Because I know that people and other people are created wholeheartedly for a purpose. Brian, man, you look like you got something on your mind.
You got me going over here, man. First, you mentioned the kids and us understanding their value or them not understanding their value through us. I'm telling you guys, you can go on, a meeting out of town. It went horrible. You just want to just go and crash and not deal with anything. But when you walk through that door, your children don't care. They don't care what you went through. You're dad to them. You're not CEO of such and such. You're dad. How you act when you come through the threshold of that door is highly critical on what you are pouring into those kids. Inadvertently, we can be just completely damaging our kids by how we're reacting to something that has nothing to do with them. Nothing to do with them. So we have to make sure that we are exhibiting certain behaviors in front of them that we want them to someday model. We need to exemplify that which we want our kids to be in the future. But at the same time, understand that let me do this at such a level that this child is going to see me being this superhero version of a dad, and he is by default going to have me as his role model, his superhero, his individual that he wants to grow up and be like. Not saying that you want your child to be, a reflection, a mirror image of yourself, but you want your child to have learned that base, that foundational level self-belief, of understanding of who you are, going out and giving to the world which you are, which you're meant to give, but at the same time, coming back home, giving them what they deserve when they deserve it. And to the later fact that you mentioned, as far as your skin, your children not really looking at the skin color and such. If I can find a picture, give me 1 second.
But yeah, as he's looking for that, it's an awesome picture that when our children are watching us and how we're dealing with other people, and whether you agree with them or disagree with specific issues, we're not talking about that. We're talking about who people are at face value. And when our children see that, they're going to imitate that behavior. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Well, before I even show, I want to show a picture of my kids. Before I even show that, there's been instances where I would be on the local media, a handful of times where I'd be on the local news, speaking on various different things that I've been involved with. And some of my son's classmates would see me on TV. And being at the age that some of them were at the time, it is crazy. You don't see, and some of their household with the news that they listen to and the media that I actually just ended up to be on, they don't see a whole bunch of African-American males in suit and tie and, speaking articulately on things of substance. So they knew that at that time, Barack Obama was the president and he was a black guy. So I showed up to my son's school and one of his friends was like, I saw your daddy on the news the other night. I didn't know he was the president. So, little things like that. But, and just to go into that a little bit deeper, this is a picture of my son. So doesn't look exactly like me. And then a picture of my daughter, a little bit aged. But I have biracial children. My wife is a Latina out of Bolivia. So our children don't necessarily look just like me if we're out in public together. So there's times where I'll be with my kids and I get those eyeballs, like, whose kids you got? So sometimes I'll show up to my son's school and at some type of family function. And I'll walk into the door and one of the kids or my son will be like, there's my dad. And the kids are looking, where? And then my son not really taking my skin color into account. And then he understands, they don't see the connection. And they'll say the bald-headed black guy. So, when you have children that really don't look at differentiating people, differentiating their worth, their value by what they look like, that just helps us as a united, and I want to say united, as a United States, that helps us move forward and be able to cooperate, be able to collaborate, and bring so much more prosperity to this world by disregarding what someone looks like before you actually take into consideration what their worth and their value is. We hear people say often that I'm colorblind. And I don't like that term. And in psychology and in the social work, counseling, therapeutic professions, they teach not to say that you're colorblind because that's completely disconnecting that specific individual from what his or her culture based off of their color has had to endure. But at the same time, the things that they currently endure. So understand their color, see their color, but don't let their color dictate how you treat them or how you act towards them. So I love to to go places with my son and be in front of people that are not accustomed to people that look like me, engaging in specific types of conversation. And by the time I leave that conversation, they're like, who was that guy? And not to brag or anything. I'm just very thankful that I've had the people around me to continue to push me to keep learning and learning and learning. Educate yourself about this matter, that matter, that matter. Be engaged in all of these different types of intellectual conversations so that you can make yourself more well-rounded so that your value is appreciated at so many more tables. So I do that intentionally in front of my son. I have interviews with very successful individuals and put it on speakerphone in front of my son so that he understands the type of conversations that I'm having. I'm not having just your regular old small talk about what happened, at the park this past weekend. Who got in the fight? Did you see what world star video is trending? No, it's not that type of conversation. It's conversation about things that typically in my community, we don't have enough conversations about, as far as different levels of education, actually investing, financial education, things that we aren't taught in our public schools. But I'm learning from individuals who are in that space, and then I'm bringing it back into my household, having conversation with my wife about it, having conversation with people who are in my circle that may not have ventured into that area of their life yet, but making aware to the world around me that I am not your average bear. I'm going to bring something extra to the table. And if you discount opening or sliding open that chair for me based off of what I look like, hey, it's your loss. I got another table waiting for me that I'm ready to go and pour into them, but at the same time allow them to pour into me so much more, because I'm only one and I got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I mean, I can go on and on, Matt. I am just highly passionate about doing what I do for my kids, but not only for my kids, but for the kids all around the world that don't have that support in their specific circle. And then for those young adults that have transitioned into adulthood without that support system, and now they're lost and they're on the verge of that, the school to prison pipeline, because they just don't have that foundation, that blueprint to transition to that next stage in life. Whereas so many other individuals that may be from a more prosperous, more socioeconomically advanced level, they have been giving that support, putting their youth in the environments to prepare them for that next stage. So I'm pretty much, I guess you can say I'm the cleanup crew. I come and clean up the ones that were left behind. And if I can help one child see a better life and start taking the steps towards living that better life, my mission is fulfilled.
So as we finish up, and this is going to be a loaded question, and I don't ask this to offend or to make anyone look bad. But what do cultures? Here we go. I'll ask it this way: what do cultures need to do to build that bridge between other cultures and to unite ourselves completely?
We have to get completely comfortable with being uncomfortable. We've got to, when we're walking down the sidewalk and we make eye contact with that person that looks completely different from us from a distance, because we want to make sure, let me align myself so I don't run into this person. But when we get close enough to actually engage in a conversation, we look down at our phones. We got to get away from that. You need to find someone, I would say at least once a week, figure out how to connect with someone that's completely different from you. If you're a black guy and you live most of your life, in the hood, so to say, in the project, if that's where you've grown up, that's just where some of us grow up. If that's where you've grown up, find you someone that's lived in the city that's white, that looks completely different than you, dresses completely different, try to engage in conversation. But at the same time, we have to not be offended if that person doesn't reciprocate that, because it's so easy for us to be offended, and that turns us against wanting to do it anymore. Be comfortable with getting uncomfortable like that. Because when I first had a conversation with you and I, we're completely different. I mean, you're a white guy from the Midwest, I'm a black guy from the South, but we didn't allow that to keep us from building a bond, building a friendship, and wanting to see each other continue to succeed in life. And we never know what that person that looks completely different from us can actually add, what value they can add to our life, and what value we can add to their life. There's so many of us that come from various different areas of the sexual orientation rainbow, ethnic rainbow, religious rainbow. I'm telling you right now, I have friends, very good friends, that are atheists, agnostic, homosexual, bisexual, Indian, Muslim, Hindi, like any little area of this world that is completely different than what I am, I have friends in those spaces because I can never fully understand them and they can never fully understand me until we have a conversation about who am I, where I'm from, why I do what I do the way I do it. And this is what I think about you. Can you help me with that? I was conversation partners with about 5 different guys from Saudi Arabia back in my undergraduate days. So they just dismantled so many beliefs that mainstream media feeds us on people from Saudi Arabia, putting all of them in a group based off the actions of a few. That's just like if I walk up on the street and I see you at nighttime and I'm not in the mind space that I am right now, I can easily judge you based off of what people that look like you have done to me in the past. Yeah. And in the same way, on the other side, there's white men and women that will cross me on a sidewalk and they're going to react a certain way towards me based off of something that happened in the past. That's why I always take it upon myself to be the exception. Let me be that one that gives you this big, warm, welcoming smile, asking how your day is. And then you like double take, like, what? That just came from you? I'm telling you, man, it happens all the time, but we have to we have to be comfortable with getting uncomfortable, reaching out and communicating with someone that's completely different and just being real and not allowing ourselves to be offended. The gentleman before me mentioned how falling in love or staying in love is a choice. Well, everything that we do, whether it's getting to know someone new, allowing that new person into our life, it's a choice. We can make the choice to stay closed off, or we can make that choice to expand ourselves, open ourselves up to others, learn about those others, and not be afraid with the answers that we get. We have to welcome those answers in because it's only going to pour into us and develop us into a better version of ourselves.
Definitely. Absolutely love it. And last question before I let go, Brian and I have been on the phone before and for a couple of hours talking about different things and stuff. We respect one another. We love each other's passion. And that's one of the greatest things about what he's doing and what he's talking about, breaking down those walls. So as a society and as a culture, when we break down those walls, what happens to our children? What are the benefits of knocking down those walls?
Well, that can be double fold because I've actually asked myself that question before. And when I when I met my wife, fell in love with her, and I have made the choice to stay in love with her. I would look at my cousins, my relatives, look at the difference in how they were living, what they looked like, what life threw at them because of what they looked like. And I compared that to what I saw in my potential future children. And then once I had children, I continued to look at that because my son and daughter are treated completely different than my niece and nephew. So I think it's important for us to let our children understand that there's going to be changes that happen in mom and daddy's life. There's going to be certain things that mom and daddy do that's going to cause people to look at you or respond to you differently because it's going to be an extension of who you are. Oh, so you're such and such a child. So you must believe in X, Y, Z also. So just teaching them that society is going to do that to you. They're going to expect that of you, but you know who it is that you are. You know why it is that your mom and daddy did the things that they did, why they do the things that they do. And if it's something that you don't know, you don't understand, it's not something that you talk to with mom and daddy, then you have to be able to sit well with that. I don't know, be okay with saying, I don't know why something is. But I really just, I aim to make sure that my son exemplifies with his friends, his peers, the same thing that I do with my peers. So letting him know that, look, don't treat your friends any less because you have gotten certain accolades. You still treat them like a friend. You never treat them like they're less than. But at the same time, don't look at someone else that's received more accolades than you and look at yourself as less than. And then even on a deeper level, don't allow any teacher or authority figure make you do something that you deep down within don't think is the right thing to do, or you just don't understand it. Question authority respectfully, but question it. And my son has gotten in trouble with it when he was younger, but he's gotten older and he's been tested gifted. So it kind of goes throughout the school, or this child is going to ask more questions than normal because he really is curious to know the basis of this answer. He just doesn't, he's not one of those that takes it for face value. So just teaching them to do that and to understand that if they do it the right way, they're only going to continue to help others break down those barriers of thinking that they have to stay a certain way. But at the same time, it's going to allow him, specifically speaking of my son, to continue to grow by understanding more of the world, more of why this friend wears this thing on their head. Ask, have conversation. Why this friend over here has no hair because he may be going through, chemo or whatever. Have the conversations. Never be afraid to be uncomfortable with getting into conversations about why whatever is happening is different than what it is that you have been exposed to.
Man, I think that's some phenomenal advice. So as we finish up, tell anyone who's listening, anyone who's watching, a couple years down the road, maybe, what is your business? What are you into? And also, how can people contact you, maybe for speaking events or to have those great personal conversations?
Well, pretty much all of my contact information can be found on my website. My business is called Your Legacy Begins Now, and it's a business that I developed primarily to generate revenue, where a portion of it will go towards developing and sustaining adolescent mentorship programs. So all of my contact information can be found there. I speak at schools from elementary all the way to university, speak at leadership events for youth summits. I do one-on-one coaching. I partner with universities to develop mentorship programs, to develop curriculum, because I really aim to add that art piece into theory, because a lot of universities will do a project and they don't really understand how to apply it to the population that they're wanting to apply it to. So I go in and I add that extra component there. And I just love pouring into people. If you have something that you're trying to achieve in life, let us link up, because I specialize on helping people break down, just break that chain that's holding them back from their greatness. And that chain is different from one person to another. So figuring out, talking through with you on what's going on in your life. And eventually we dig up what that chain is. And then we talk a little bit more and we snap that chain and you're off to the races achieving your goals.
Man, that is awesome. Absolutely awesome. Brian, man, thank you so much for coming and enlightening us with your words of wisdom. Definitely check out Your Legacy Begins Now. That right?
Your Legacy Begins Now.
Your Legacy Begins Now. Definitely check that out. Check Brian out. He is everything he says and so much more. This is a guy who loves people. He loves helping people. He wants to, and he wants to change society. He wants to break down those barriers. He wants to, change mindsets. He's consistently and constantly building up his own mindset. That way he can take on any challenge that comes at him. This is a great husband, a great father, somebody that you want to link up with and get to know. He will do nothing but encourage you and challenge your way of thinking, help change your mindset and challenge that. If you'd like to know a little bit more about what Wrestling with Fatherhood is all about, check out our website. That is www.fatherhood.com. Again, that's www.fatherhood.com. Also, be sure to check out our website. Also, for people who register, you can register at www.fatherhood.com/summit. For those people who register, Ray Matz, who was on last night, said he will give a free copy of Game Changing Dads to anybody who does register. So make sure you go over do that. Ricky Shetty, who will be on Friday, is going to be giving out a free course on how to become a digital nomad. So that is definitely something you want to check out. So I would encourage you to do that. Again, www.fatherhood.com/summit. Check out Brian and what he's doing. Your legacy begins now.
let me throw one more in there. I'll give away a copy of my ebook, Your Journey Toward Self-Actualization, for everybody else that registers. You shoot me their email address over, and I'll take care of that.
Awesome. So there you heard it from Brian Street. He's got a new book that's about to come out. He's I've been keeping up with his blogs. It looks like it's going to be a phenomenal book. It's going to have some great material in it. So definitely come out and sign up for the summit. Summit will be going until Saturday. So until then, until next time, our next summit session will be with Alan, and that will be at 8 p.m. Eastern. Look forward to seeing you guys there. You guys all have a great day.
Take it easy.